In a lively village by a flowing river lived a young woman named Adjani. Her beauty was striking, like the bright morning sun, and every young man spoke her name with admiration. But Adjani had a hidden desire. She believed her beauty deserved only the best. She dreamt of a husband who was not just handsome and rich, but who would treat her like royalty, pampering her with fine clothes and jewels, and adoring her every move. She called him her perfect husband, even though she had never met him. Many kind and hardworking men, like Musa, the skilled potter, Bayer, the strong farmer, and even Leke, the clever weaver, came to ask for Adoni's hand. They offered gifts of sweet yams, colorful fabrics, and beautifully crafted pots. They spoke of genuine love and building a humble home together. But Adoni simply chuckled softly, tossing her long strands of hair. "You are not for me," she would say, her voice light and musical. "My husband will be far grander than any of you." Her heart was closed to their simple goodness, blinded by her lavish dreams. Then one sunny market day, a stranger rode into the village. His horse was as black as midnight, its mane flowing like dark silk. The man himself was tall and slender, with eyes that sparkled like dark polished stones, and a smile that promised everything. He wore clothes woven with golden threads, and his voice was smooth and inviting. He was the most handsome man Adoni had ever seen, and his wealth was clear for all to witness. Adoni's heart beat rapidly. "This is him," she thought, "my perfect husband." The stranger, who called himself Zadok, saw Adoni, and his gaze lingered on her. He spoke sweet words, promising her a life of unimaginable luxury. He would build her a palace, he said, where she would never have to work, where servants would fan her with ostrich feathers, and every wish would be granted. He swore he would adore her, truly making her a princess. Adoni was completely captivated. It was a rapid romance, and soon they were married amid much celebration, though some villagers felt a quiet unease about the swift arrival of the stranger. What Adoni did not know in her pride was Zadok's chilling true reason. It was an ancient dark being, a creature whose very existence fed on the life force of beauty and light. He had watched Adoni for a long time, drawn to her radiant spirit and striking looks. But it wasn't just her physical beauty he desired. It was her vibrant, confident energy, a rich source for his dark magic. He didn't want to simply possess her. He wanted to consume her essence, slowly draining her vitality to fuel his own monstrous power. Her arrogance, which made her reject true love for superficial desires, was exactly what made her vulnerable to his deceptive charm. She was the ideal, unaware sacrifice for his dark purpose. After the wedding, Zadok told Adoni it was time to travel to his home. My home is distant, he explained, deep within the ancient forest, a place of calm and natural beauty. The first few days were pleasant. They rode through paths dappled with sunlight, the air fragrant with fresh leaves and earth. Zadok was attentive, holding her hand, telling her amusing stories, and always ensuring her comfort. But soon, the paths narrowed. The trees grew taller and darker, forming a thick green tunnel above them. They crossed rushing rivers that roared like angry animals and climbed steep hills that seemed to touch the sky. The forest deepened, growing silent, except for the rustling of unseen creatures and the distant hoot of an owl. Adoni began to feel a growing unease. The sweet scent of blooming flowers was replaced by the damp smell of moss and decay. The days grew colder, and the sunlight barely reached the forest floor. "Are we nearly there, my love?" she'd ask, her voice a little shaky. Zadok would simply smile, a wide, confident smile, and made her worries fade for a moment. "Almost, my beautiful flower, just a little further." But the further they went, the wilder and more unsettling the landscape became. Finally, after weeks of difficult travel, they arrived. It was not a palace. It was a dwelling carved into the side of a jagged black mountain, looking more like a monster's gaping mouth than a home. Twisted ancient trees with bare, skeletal branches clawed at the gray sky, and the air was heavy and still. No birds sang, no sun reached this place. The only light came from strange glowing fungi clinging to the damp rocks. Inside, the home was vast and cold, with shadowy corners and echoing rooms. There were no servants, only an eerie silence and the constant drip of water from the stone ceiling. At first, Zadok tried to maintain his kind act. He brought her strange sweet fruits and wild berries. He sang her songs in a language she didn't understand. His voice still smooth like honey, but now with a strange dark undertone. But the kindness was a thin disguise. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the disguise began to crumble. The beautiful clothes she brought with her grew torn and dirty. The food was scarce and tasteless. One gloomy morning, as mist clung to the mountain, Adoni asked for a drink of water from a spring she had seen. Zadok's eyes, once sparkling, now glinted with a cold, harsh light. "Fetch it yourself," he snarled. His voice no longer sweet, but rough and grating. He pushed her roughly, making her stumble. Adoni felt a chill deeper than the mountain air. This was not the man she married. This was not her perfect husband. From that day on, Zadok's true nature as a monster became clear. Like a dark, thorny vine spreading, he stopped speaking kindly, He raged at her for the smallest things, his face twisting into something ugly and terrifying. He would leave her alone for days in the echoing darkness, bringing back strange raw meat for her to eat, or nothing at all. He forced her to fetch water from the chilling murky pools that gathered deep in the mountain's crevices, and gather bitter roots for their meals, while he watched with cruel amusement. The grand promises of being a princess vanished. Instead, she was his captive, his servant, trapped in this desolate, frightening place. Every day was a struggle against hunger, cold, and Zadok's unpredictable temper. She longed for the simple, wholesome food of her village. Now, her stomach constantly ached with emptiness. The once beautiful Adoni, who had been so proud of her appearance, became a mere shadow of her former self. Her skin grew pale and thin. Her once bright eyes were sunken and filled with fear. Her lovely hair became matted and tangled. She was no longer beautiful. She was bony and ragged, and in her heart, a bitter seed of regret began to grow. She thought of Musa, Bayer, and Leke, their kind faces, their honest hands, their simple, genuine smiles. Oh, how she wished she had chosen a humble heart over a handsome face and empty promises. But it was too late. She was trapped, utterly alone in the heart of the monster's domain. The days blurred into a cycle of fear and misery. The sun never reached them, and the cold damp air made her bones ache. Each night, the hoot of the unseen owls sounded like mocking laughter. She would sometimes whisper prayers she barely remembered from her childhood. Her voice, a thin, weak sound, swallowed by the vast silence. One stormy night, as thunder crashed and lightning briefly lit up the horrifying landscape outside, Zadok left his dwelling, shouting that he had business with the storm. Adoni huddled in a corner, trembled with fear. She had reached the absolute limit of her strength. Her body shivering, her mind growing faint. In that moment of complete despair, something within her changed. All her pride, all her self-reliance shattered. She closed her eyes, tears streaming down her thin face, and for the first time in years, she truly prayed. Not with arrogance, but with a raw, desperate plea from the depths of her soul. "O Great Spirit, God of my ancestors," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, "if there is any mercy left, please save me from this darkness. I have been foolish, proud, and blind. Please forgive me and show me a way." As she finished her prayer, the cave, which was usually completely dark when Zadok was gone, shimmered with a faint, warm glow in a small, hidden alcove. Her eyes, now used to the gloom, noticed a faint shimmering, light from behind a loose stone on the wall, directly above where the glow appeared. Her heart pounded with a new kind of hope. Driven by this desperate feeling, she pushed at the stone. It moved, revealing a tiny crack, just big enough for her to squeeze through. It was as if an unseen hand had guided her, a silent answer to her desperate prayer. It was a miracle, a tiny escape from her prison. She knew it was by the grace of God. With every ounce of strength left in her emaciated body, she squeezed through, tearing her last remaining scraps of cloth on the jagged edges. She was free. The storm raged around her, a wild, chaotic dance of wind and rain. She didn't know where she was going, but she ran, stumbling over roots and rocks, pushed by an invincible force of hope. She ran for days and nights, eating only wild berries and drinking rainwater, sleeping in hollow logs, always driven by the terror of Zadok finding her. She walked through thick bushes, climbed over fallen trees, and bravely crossed rushing streams. Her feet bled, her body ached, but her spirit, once so proud, was now filled with a fierce, humble will to survive. Back at the monster's dwelling, Zadok returned, dripping wet and furious from the storm. The moment he stepped inside, a chilling shriek tore from his throat. The faint glow where Adoni had been was now gone, and the air where her fading life force should have been empty. He knew instantly. His feast had escaped. His rage was limitless. He roared, shaking the very mountain, and conjured dark, swelling wings to search the forest. He sent forth his shadowy helpers, creatures of the night that only he could control, whispering her name into the dark corners of the woods. But the storm, perhaps guided by a higher power, had grown more intense, confusing his sense of direction and scattering his search. The heavy rain washed away her scent, and the roaring winds masked any sound she made. Despite his power, the elements conspired against him, and he failed to catch her. His monstrous fury echoing uselessly through the dark trees. Months later, a tattered skeletal figure stumbled into her old village. Her clothes were shredded rags, her skin stretched tight over her bones, and a once radiant face was etched with terror and hardship. The villagers looked at her, shocked, barely recognizing the once beautiful Adoni. Her parents, weeping with disbelief and relief, embraced their lost daughter. Adoni was no longer the proud beauty. Her terrible experience had stripped away all her arrogance. She was humble, quiet, and her eyes held a deep sadness, but also a newfound wisdom. She never spoke of the horrors she had faced directly, only that she had seen the true face of greed and emptiness. She lived a quiet life, helping her family, sharing what little she had, and never again looked down on anyone, no matter their background or humble beginnings. She never remarried, for her spirit had been too deeply scarred for worldly desires. But she had learned a lesson more valuable than any jewel. This story reminds us that pride and arrogance can blind us to true worth, the leaders to dismiss genuine value and chase after empty illusions. True wealth is not measured by material possessions, outward beauty, or a luxurious lifestyle. Instead, true wealth is found in a kind heart, a strong character, and the genuine love shared with others. These are treasures that remain even when all else is lost. What truly makes a person valuable? Their looks and possessions, or the kindness and character they show to the world?